On today's Locked On Senators, we'll continue our exit interviews with Jakob Chychrun, Jacob Bernard Docker, and Travis Hamonic, and it got us thinking just how much change is coming to the Sens decor.
And more playoff hockey incoming. I'm talking, of course, about the Belleville Senators Game 2 up against the Cleveland Monsters. I will have boots on the ground. We'll preview that one.
We certainly will, and a whole lot more coming up on today's edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Jake Sanderson, and you're listening to Locked On Senators podcast.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Welcome inside episode 1038 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. You can follow the show on social media. We're at Sens Central on Twitter, LockedOn.Senators on Instagram. The show is free and available on all podcast platforms, including on YouTube, where a like, comment, and subscription go a long way to helping the show grow. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side. It always comes out during playoffs, and it's also a big fan of Monopoly Go. It's the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go now free on the App Store or Google Play. Today is Friday, May 3rd, and Pilsy, thank goodness for eBay Motors because you're going back and forth to Belleville almost daily. How fired up are you tonight to get back to CAA Arena?
Oh, I'm stoked, Ross. The crowds at CAA Arena have been much better for the playoffs, too. It's been an exciting atmosphere, and Game 2 with the Belleville Senators already up 1-0 on the series. This is a closely contested matchup between Belleville and Cleveland. I feel like they match up really well. I'm fired up, Ross. I got the hotel room in Belle-Vegas, so it's a full green light on a Friday night. Let's go.
That's awesome. I'm jealous, buddy. Wish I could be there with you, but I'll have to live vicariously through you. He's going to record something after the game, just like we did after game 1. And Pilsy, I've been poking around on Monsters Twitter.
Okay.
And they are very upset that there's no overhead camera in Belleville available for everybody.
People still think that wasn't in? That was in.
Okay.
It was in.
I'm on the fence. I really am. Hey, if Crooker says it's in, it's in.
Yeah, are you calling Crooker a liar?
No. Crooker is on the straight and narrow.
Exactly. Just like that shot.
Man. Some bad news, though, going into tonight's game. Zach Ostapchuk, who left last game with an injury, not out long-term. There's the silver lining, but will not play tonight. So that's almost where it's better that there's this big gap after tonight. The two teams won't play again for almost a week. Next Wednesday is game 3.
Well, and Ross, I'm not a big Cleveland Cavaliers fan, so I'm not sure what's going on with them, but that could affect the schedule as well. Maybe even I believe if the Cavs extend their series, that'll push back some of the Belleville Monster games as well. Maybe you can fact check me on that. Yeah,
you're already wrong because Cleveland's up 3-2 in their series as I go to NBA.com to find this information out as we're going here. So the Magic can win tonight at home to extend it to a game 7, and game 7 would be in Cleveland. So maybe there's something to do with that.
Interesting. All right.
But the NBA is notorious too, whereas if they have their second series set, they don't wait. Like NHL, you wait for everybody. NBA, they're like, no, we're good to go. Play round 2. So I don't know how the whole scheduling thing's going to work out, but man, win your home games if you're Belleville because that barn is going to be rocking. They averaged over 10,000 fans per game all season long. Like that's the best attendance in the American Hockey League. The best that doubles the Arizona Coyotes attendance from last season.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a big barn. So and the Monsters haven't been in the playoffs in a while. The people of Ohio haven't had much to get excited about hockey-wise, although they're probably Stephen Halliday fans from his university days. But you want to win this game. Like, if you can go into Cleveland up 2-0, that's so
You just have to win one. Win 1 out of 3 on the road.
And it's a Friday night in Belle-Vegas. The people are going to be fired up, Ross. I was looking for my seat. Usually, if I'm going solo, I like to find an aisle seat, have a little leg room, be able to go in and out as I please. There was no aisle seats on the whole side of the rink where I wanted to go so I could see the benches.
Not even for you.
Not even for me. Yeah. I tried to find something in the aisles, couldn't find it. This is going to be a packed barn. And the nice thing, Ross, is I'm pretty sure there's not going to be any Cleveland Monsters fans there. Last series, we had to deal with a couple blue heads. So we won't have to deal with that here. It's going to be fun. I'm fired up. Come say what up to me. I'll be in section 105.
And if you still need tickets, we'll put the link. We've got a discount link for you. Your team every day, and we want all Belleville Sens and Ottawa Senators fans in the building for tonight's game. The Belleville Sens taking on the Cleveland Monsters, up 1-0 in their best of 5. You want to get deeper into this series, check out our interviews earlier this week, Stephen Halliday and Peelsy Garrett Pelon. Now, really fun to see the AHL kind of matter here in Ottawa for the first time playoff-wise since they moved to Belleville. Heck, since they won the Calder Cup back in 2011. And if you look at that roster, a lot of guys went on to NHL careers. So it's always fun to be able, even just for the water cooler chatter where it's like, oh, I saw that guy play 10 years ago back when he was in the minors. And hey, these guys can go on to have great NHL careers. So far, the key to the series has been like the ability for Belleville to get another, right? They got the first goal and then bang, Crooker gets another one right there. And then they were able to tighten up defensively and Mads got better as the game went on. If Mads can pick up where he left off, they're in good hands.
Yeah, the battle between Mads Sogard and Jet Greaves is going to be a big factor in this series, especially Ross. This isn't a 3-game series like the last one. It's a 5-game series. So goaltending is going to have to really pull through if one of these teams wants to be successful. And from what we saw from Mads last game, I had a lot more confidence in him last game than I did in the series up against the Marlies. So I'm fired up. This is going to be great.
It's going to be awesome. Again, more Belleville coverage coming here, but let's get to the Ottawa Senators because it is important, doesn't do it justice. It is a critical summer ahead for the Ottawa Senators. We talked a lot over the last couple of weeks about the head coaching search, the names that are emerging. Nobody knew in the last 24 hours, first 24 hours, we haven't had a new candidate come up all week long. So I don't know. Hey, Stevie, get to work. No, but all jokes aside, I think right now they're waiting for round 1 because there is that clog right now of what's going to happen with the blue team. What's going to happen with Sheldon Keefe? Is that going to put a carousel into action, into overdrive? The guy who's manning it just full throttle. I think right now it's gonna have to wait because Craig Berube probably holds the most cards out of any available coach right now, and it's probably in his best interest to wait and create a bidding war if he wants to go to the highest bidder and who wants his services. But in terms of Steve Staios, other than the head coaching job, he's also got a very important decision or 2 or 3 or 4 to make on the blue line. Pilsy, we were talking about the Vancouver Canucks as the perfect blueprint for the Ottawa Senators. And we're talking about just how much they've changed their decor year over year from opening day last year to what we're going to see tonight in game 6 against Nashville.
Yeah, it's been a complete overhaul. And that's the thing. They looked at Quinn Hughes and they were like, all right, how can we surround this guy with the right type of player so that we can have a complete back end? And I don't know about you, Ross, but I looked at that deal when they traded a first rounder plus, I think, for Filip Hronek. I was like, what are the Canucks doing? Like, what's going on here? That's the guy they're targeting. But now that's been one of the better moves they've made as they're looking at extending him, I'm sure. And he's fit into that blue line really nicely. And then you had guys like Susie and Ian Cole, some veteran kind of more shut down defensively responsible guys. And they've made a really nice decor there over in Vancouver. So I think a major overhaul similar to that is what Ottawa Senators could be looking to do as well.
So is this something that can extend into next season? Because then they added Nikita Zadorov via trade. So is there something to be said that maybe you don't want to mix in 4 new faces just like that? Because we talked right at the end of the season, like other than Jake Sanderson and Artem Zub as your locked in first pair on the blue line. I think there should be a full audit of everything else beyond that. Like Thomas Chabot, we just did his exit interview yesterday. You can go get an in-depth acknowledgement of what we thought of his season and beyond. But like, I think that there's room for Thomas Chabot. Now, the cap makes it a little bit different. No trade clause coming in July 1st for him, and wrist surgery might kind of negate anything to be able to happen on that front. But whether or not Thomas Chabot is in the picture, there's still 3, if not 4, you want to count the depth 7th defenseman spot, which is important in the mix here. Like, I think I would probably draw the line at 2 new regulars to start next season, see how it works, and have your eye on a third that could potentially be a trade target if you get off to a good start and you want to take the next step.
Yeah, I think that's fair, Ross. And you look at Vancouver, and the reason they didn't acquire Zadorov earlier is because it wasn't available earlier, right? Like, I think the Calgary Flames thought they were going to have a better year than they got off to. And then Zadorov, obviously, we all know what happened there. He wasn't happy with the team's effort, and he seemed like the culture there he didn't really want to be a part of anymore, so he made it very public that he wanted out. So they got him out. Vancouver scooped him up at a nice price. So that's the kind of thing where you need flexibility too to be advantageous. When a guy you're looking at comes up, you can make a move to grab him. So I think the Ottawa Senators are going to have to find ways to be flexible so that if those types of deals do come up, they can be in the mix.
And that's just what you want them to be, is in the mix beyond November next season. Please. On the other side, we will get into our exit interviews. Jakob Chychrun, Jacob Bernard Docker, Travis Hamonic, plus the NHL playoffs, Game 7, Saturday night in Boston. Leafs, Bruins, we'll touch on that, and the series that are concluding. Was that a Freudian slip? Who knows? We got 2 elimination games tonight in the National Hockey League. We'll discuss all that coming up. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Guys, it's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball is in full swing in the regular season. The Kentucky Derby is coming up soon, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 whether you win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. Ross, are you a big Kentucky Derby guy? I'm not a horse racing guy, but I love when the Kentucky Derby comes around and you just pick a name that feels right. Or sometimes I just like tossing a single dollar on the longest odd just to see if something happens there.
I like that. I'm looking at all the names right now. Track Phantom. That's a good one. 20-1 odds this morning. Epic Ride is another one. Or how about like you and me? Couple Society Men. They've got that as a 50-1. But if you like long shots right now,
yeah, let's hear it.
Let's see. I think more that might be it is. No, Grand Mo the First and Society Man, both 50-1.
I might toss a couple shekels on Society Man.
Okay. I don't mind that. I'm gonna go with Just Steal. Just Steal. 20-1 odds. I like that.
All right. So if you want to pick a name that you like the best, or maybe you actually know something about horse riding, horse racing, I should say, and you want to get on the mix, do it at FanDuel. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
Today's episode is also brought to you by the Glebe Central Pub. You want to go watch the Kentucky Derby? Go check them out at the Glebe Central Pub. It's always a great vibe at the Glebe Central Pub, and I heard it's free. The vibes are free at the GCP. Can confirm. They've also got great events going on at the Glebe Central Pub, whether it's live music every Saturday night, so go check that out tomorrow. They've got their beers of the day. Beers of the day. They want to make sure that it's affordable to you every day to go check them out at 779 Bank Street. They've got trivia night. Always a blast to go with friends or solo and enjoy the interactiveness of trivia. They also support the community. They've been raising the bar to support girls in STEM research, so that's really cool. They're just a neighborhood pub That's what they are. They want good vibes. They want to have good food. They want to make sure that you go in hungry and leave happy. So go check them out at 779 Bank Street, walking distance from Lansdowne. So if you're going to check out a PWHL Ottawa game, you're going to check out an Atletico Ottawa game. They even do events at the Glebe Central Pub and march to Lansdowne to go check out the Atletico Ottawa games. It's always a great vibe at the GCP. Check them out, 779 Bank Street, and let them know that Locked On Senators sent you. All right, Pillsy, before we get to our exit interviews, a reminder that you can follow the show on social media at Sens Central on Twitter. Please consider subscribing on YouTube. It does go a long way to helping the show grow. We're going full throttle into next season. Can't wait. Is it October yet? Well, hopefully, I'm sure Steve Staios would want otherwise because he's got a lot of work to do, and we'll be here every step of the way throughout the offseason. Your team, every day. We take that very seriously here on Locked On Senators. Also, you want to hear a little bit more behind the scenes from us, go check out the Behind the Play podcast with Alex Adams. Pillsy and I were on with Alex yesterday. He's a great guy. Rookie season in the books, covering the Senators, boots on the ground. So go check out the Behind the Play podcast. Pillsy, one more point about that decor and the change, because I do feel like Vancouver is such an appropriate comparable to make for the Ottawa Senators. They were brutal last year. Brutal. And they had the coaching change. Now, the difference being they implemented their full-time head coach in Rick Tocchet, and he was able to kind of have a feeling out process throughout. Now, one thing Rick Tocchet did is he wanted guys coming in throughout the offseason to check in, to train, all that. I'm curious if the new Sens coach goes, hey, I'm going to be here all summer. I want the Brady Kachucks of the world, the Jake Sandersons, Thomas Shabbats. I think Shabby lives here full time. But anyways, I want those guys to be in and around the facility all summer, not all summer long, do your thing, train wherever is comfortable for you, but to at least come in and be seen that you're going to be a leader on this team, that you should be in the facility, showing that being an Ottawa Senator means being in Ottawa and doing your thing.
Well, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like they players talked about that in garbage bag day. Some of them saying, look, we're going to be around Ottawa. And like our good buddy at Leames Marson tweeted out, no hot boy Greek summer for Timmy, no spending a summer in a cabin in northern Quebec or going back to Europe for these guys. Let's all stay in Ottawa. Let's train together. Let's figure it out. That would be ideal.
No darkness retreats.
Yeah, no darkness retreats either.
The Aaron Rodgers special. But no, I think that it could go a long way. And just look how tight the Vancouver Canucks were throughout this season. They were competitive for the President's Trophy until ultimately a little bit of a dip when Thatcher Demko was, not as consistently at the top of his game. But I do think that the Vancouver Canucks are a great prototype to watch if you're the Ottawa Senators as an example of how to turn things around rather quickly. All right, let's get to our exit interviews. Today, we are talking about Jakob Chychrun, the most polarizing player on the Ottawa Senators. Pillsy, I know yesterday you told me that Eric Branstrom wasn't. Is it fair to say that Jakob Chychrun is?
I would say he is. Yeah, if not the most, then at least one of the most, because what a fascinating case, Ross. He comes to Ottawa in the at the trade deadline last year. We were all fired up about him. It was one of the best vibes we've had on the podcast, Jakob Chychrun arriving. He comes in, he plays a handful of games. I believe it was 12 games last season, and he was great for the Senators. It seemed like he fit in. It seemed like he was going to help provide some pop on the power play. Defensively, he was playing well. It looked like he could play the right side even a little bit. And then this season, just things didn't work out for him. It seemed like Jacques Martin wasn't able to find the right role for him to play on this team. He's not able to play the right side. He's taking bad penalties. His defensive play is not as good as we had hoped it would be. And all you need to do is watch the comparison. Claire Hanna tweeted a video of his end of the season presser last year where he's excited. He said he loves being with the boys. He has a smile on his face. He's relaxed. He's joking around. And then compare it to this season's end of the season presser, he's a man of few words. He says he doesn't know whether he's going to be here long term. He hasn't thought about it, and just kind of just down in the dumps. And you can tell this is a guy that thought his time in Ottawa was going to go a lot different than it did this season.
It's really sad. It is. This guy cried after his first goal in Ottawa. Grandpa was there with the apple fritter, and it was just kind of a homecoming in a sense that, hey, this is going to work out long term. Unfortunately, not the case. But ironically, he just tied his career high in points. He had 14 goals on the season, played all 82 games, which I think some people would say is most impressive for a guy whose injury concerns were the only thing that was a question mark when the acquisition was made. Minus 30 stands out like a sore thumb, tied with Dominic Kubalik for the worst plus minus on the team. 27 assists. I've mentioned 41 points, ties his career high. And the expected goals percentage at 5-on-5 down at 47.7. You want to be over 50%, right? When you're out there, you want more chances going the other way than your own. With Jakob Chychrun, you mentioned it. We were sold to him as this two-way defenseman. He's an offensive defenseman, and he's very good at being an offensive defenseman. There's a role in the top four for Jakob Chychrun. I think he has to have the right partner and the right situation. He had neither of those in Ottawa. The consistency wasn't there. Him and Chabot were like the only options for each other at 5-on-5 because rightfully so, the coaching staff recognized that Artem Zub and Jake Sanderson, they're the top pair on this team. But then you look at it and Jakob Chychrun's underlying numbers, heck, most of his numbers, they're at their best when they're paired with Jake Sanderson. But only one guy gets to be paired with Jake Sanderson because we could say that for almost every guy. It's almost like the Mark Stone effect. When whoever was on Mark Stone's line, they were going to get paid. Pajot, Smith, Moore, Colin White, got to mention him because Mark Stone got him like $20 million. But when you look at the blue line, like when you're a guy who after this season, what do you think he's going to command? Over $6 million on the open
I would
market?
say that's fair. Regardless of the term, it's probably going to start with a 6.
Well, you better be able to create your own, like drive your own pair. Right? I know it's more of a forward use, like drive your own line, but you have to be able to be the top guy on the pair that you're on. You can't be a complimentary type piece with that kind of salary incoming. I was really disappointed with the defensive effort. Sometimes the intensity level that was being played. Sometimes he's looking for pennies after whistles where other guys are pushing and shoving. Those things are where you want trees, not shrubs on the back end. You want guys who are going to be sturdy, stand tall, make life miserable for other players in front of the net. Like I look at it, you mentioned his penalty minutes were off the charts this season. Not a lot of roughings, not a lot of cross checkings, not a lot of like make your life right. Not those make your life miserable penalties where you're like, all right, we'll kill that off for them. Like we left a mark with that one, right? He might think twice before he comes and pokes at our goalie again. These were penalties where it's like non-contact penalties.
Yeah, and that was the disappointing part of it, and it seemed like it was bad timing too. And Ross, I feel like for me, when I think of Jakob Chychrun this year, I feel like so many goals. If you were a producer for TSN and you're covering Sens game, all right, Sens get scored on. Yeah, show the opponent Selly, show zoom out, show the crowd, zoom in, show Jakob Chychrun distraught on the ice, like
and looking around at somebody else.
Yeah, that was part of it too. Like that was the sequence that the director for in the truck was like, all right, I already know what we're gonna go. Let's do it. And it just seemed like too often he was lost out there. Now he was tasked with playing the right side a bit with Chabot. And although the numbers, I was looking back on that, Ross, because the eye test for Chabot and Chychrun was not good. But advanced analytics actually wasn't that bad for them, surprisingly. But you just it wasn't sustainable having those two guys together and two lefties there. And then you look at the games played, 82. We talked about it. Jakob Chychrun, his career high before this was his rookie season was 68. So he hadn't even cracked 70 games before in a season, and he got 82. So you would have thought, okay, this is going to be a lot of time for him to get into rhythm, for him to be consistent. He's been in Ottawa all year now. He's going to find his way. And sure, the points are there, but when you're a dash 30, like the 41 points kind of is watered down there. And a lot of those points, I'm sure, came on the power play, because this was a guy that got at least a lot of his goals on the power play.
Half his goals, 7 out of his 14 goals were on the power play. 16 points were on the power play.
Which is fine. Like, don't get it twisted. I'm not trying to knock a guy for getting points on his power play. I'm just saying the 5-on-5 play, he wasn't able to get it done with the impact we thought he would have.
Tied with Artem Zub for the team lead amongst defensemen for 5-on-5 scoring, but you kind of expected a bit more for 82 games of Jakob Chychrun. That said, good offensive defenseman, great shot. Like he's a guy who can shoot the puck. You just wish that there was a bit more in zone defending, because I think he defends fine off the rush. He's got that patented one arm wave, but then it's when he gets
see that as much, Ross.
Right, but he leads with his stick so much that he allows guys to go wide on him, and then when they cut wide, he doesn't finish them into the boards, and he doesn't make their life miserable and pinch and do all that. So I wish we saw more from Jakob Chychrun. I think Jakob Chychrun's a better player than we saw in Ottawa, but at this point, it's like the Sens decor is such a mess with all these left shots. You look at the contracts, and like if he had Chabot's contract and Chabot had his, we'd probably be leaning and being like, okay, Chychrun's better than we saw. He can bounce back. But now it's like, well, who are you going to cut bait with? Probably the guy who's going to be easier to move and bring you back more value. And you look at the minutes played with a partner, Chychrun and JBD, they ran out together for 431 minutes. Only Sanderson and Zub played more together as a D pair than Chychrun and JBD. Their expected goals percentage when they're on the ice together was dead last among any Sens D pair that played 150 minutes together. Dead last. 41%. 41%. Not good enough. Can't run it back with this. Got to make a change. I think Chychrun's gone by the draft. If he's back, there's a lot to work on defensively, but there's a lot of skill there for him. I just think that Sens fans are so done with the Pierre Dorion era that they associate this trade, this guy with Dorion. I think that they'd rather Staios go out, get his right shot D in free agency, whether it's DeMello, Tanev, you name it. And I think you just kind of rebuild the decor. This would be the ultimate, like, okay, things are changing. You can move out the depth guys, the JBDs, the guys like that, and it doesn't make a huge difference. Obviously, if the guy you bring in adds a ton more value, sure. But like this would be signaling to the whole league, like our decor wasn't good enough. We're making change.
Yeah, I agree. It's just all points too clearly to Jakob Chychrun being the guy moved out to shake up the decor, free up some cap space, and just allow the new regime of Ottawa Senators to start making their mark on this team.
Let us know in the comments your thoughts on Jakob Chychrun's season and 12 games with the Ottawa Senators. All right, on the other side, we'll get to our exit interviews for Eric Brandstrom and Travis Hamonic. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Monopoly Go. I know what you guys are thinking. All right, flag on the play, blow the whistle down. You guys have already mentioned Monopoly Go, but there's so much good stuff to talk about. We got to let you know. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with your friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you can unlock. And there's so much more. You can get unique stickers that you can trade with your friends to complete albums for big prizes. You get cool new travel pieces to play on the board with. Hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you beat them up on the board. And plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big. They got massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now for free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on with Monopoly Go.
Today's episode is also brought to you by our great friends at Farm to Fork. Farm to Fork Delivery.ca. Taste the Farm to Fork difference. I promise you'll love it. Just go look at all their 5-star reviews on Google. They average 5.0 stars. They have all natural meats, antibiotic and hormone free, and they're all ethically raised. But hey, what's the catch? No catch. What happens is that these meats are flash frozen after being hand cut at the butcher's table, which makes them fresher than in grocery stores. The products are individually vacuum packed too. So when you buy the big bundles, you only pull out what you need any given day. One of our favorite things to do for our recurring guests to make them understood that they're appreciated by us is send them a farm to fork care package. So whether you're buying for someone else or yourself, summer's around the corner, barbecue season, make sure you don't have that moment where you're like, I want a barbecue. I don't have any meat. No, with Farm to Fork, that ain't an issue because they got you covered for all premium meats and seafood as well. They got sustainable seafood, but I'm eyeing those ribeyes. I'm eyeing the barbecue bundle, and I'm also looking to get 10% off because I'm a listener of Locked On Senators. Just using the code LOSP10 will get you 10% off your first purchase. So go taste the Farm to Fork difference. You will never go back to grocery store meats. All right, Pillsy, before we get back to our exit interviews, your thoughts on Game 6 last night between the Toronto Maple Leafs and those pesky Boston Bruins, who they're not pesky in the sense the Sens used to be, those pesky Sens that actually win games. These guys couldn't even score a goal until 0.1 seconds left in the game.
Yeah, they just had to ruin Joseph Woll's shutout opportunity there, but that was a solid game. Regardless of who you wanted to win or what result you wanted, that was great playoff hockey. I mean, the play of the game, though, Ross, was that Matthew Knies move to set up William Nylander for that breakaway. Like, I was watching that play live, and I was like, oh, if Knies can find a way to shift it over, Willie's gone. And, of course, Nylander's going to score on that breakaway, so that was pretty impressive. You got to hand it to the Leafs there. And the crowd, the library, it seemed like they were actually alive. Yeah, that they were actually engaged and going. And it was a good game. And you know what? As much as I would have liked the Leafs to get eliminated there, because that was all part of my master plan, a Game 7, I love Game 7s. Game 7, Leafs, Bruins in Boston, Saturday night, hockey night in Canada. That is a nice treat. So although I'm disappointed the Leafs still have a chance, I'm excited to watch that Game 7, not going to lie.
Oh, definitely. And it's a Saturday night. I still
it's
think
the only game on, too.
I still think the Bruins are gonna take it. But hey, if the Leafs come back and win, you do have to give them some credit. And then we turn our attention to chirping the Bruins, who would have blown 3-1 series leads in back-to-back years. They did it last year against the Florida Panthers. By the way, the Panthers, they're just sitting at home laughing right now at how long this series is going.
Well, for them, it's great. Those two teams are just beating up on each other, and Boston hasn't looked the same. Pasta's been a complete zero in
Coach
this
called
series.
him out.
Yeah, called him out straightforward, and Boston has now lost 6 consecutive games in the playoffs where they could eliminate their opponents. Nuts.
Did you get a little bit of Alfie on Tucker vibes from that Pontus Holmberg hit? That wasn't called a penalty. The hit from behind, it was definitely a hit from behind.
No, I'm not. I must have missed that one. I didn't see it.
Well, come on, my goodness. And someone listening knows what I'm talking about right now. And it was in the corner, and he just got absolutely rocked from behind. And then, they score off the next faceoff. That's how it wasn't like Alfie just makes the hit shoulder to shoulder, by the way, on Darcy Tucker.
No call in the play.
No call in the play, and then goes right to the net and puts a puck in the net. Wasn't as kind of consecutive, linear as that, but it was off the next faceoff, that play where William Nylander feathered one through. Leafs win 2-1, Game 7 coming up on Saturday. You think any of the two teams tonight extend their series? Nashville at home down 2-3. Both teams are facing elimination, are at home. Vegas is the other one to Dallas.
I think Vegas keeps it going. I think Nashville, it's about time they're
curtains.
Yeah.
Back to our exit interviews. We're continuing along the depth defenseman for the Ottawa Senators, and we're going to go to none other than Jacob Bernard Docker. #NoDax Sens. And now he's been pro for 4 years now. it feels like, I mean, he even played a couple of games with the Belleville Senators this year, but JBD established himself with Ottawa as a full-time NHL defenseman. He played more than he's ever played, 72 games for JBD, 14 points, 4 goals, -7, and an expected goals percentage of 45.2. How would you assess the season that was for JBD?
It's a tough one, Ross, because I'm not about to say it was a great season and, we saw all this potential and things like that. But then at the same time, I'm not about to say it was a massive disappointment either. So I don't know. I would just give him a classic average rating here because there's things that I would like to see him improve on. Like I'd like to see him be able to handle the puck with a little bit more confidence, especially it felt like teams were dumping it in his end of the ice when they were deciding how they're going to approach the Sens defense here. And I just felt that this is a guy that we thought was going to be able to be a complimentary, like, best case scenario for JBD is he turns into a Dylan DeMello, right? Like not a lot of offensive upside, but just a steady, smart, responsible, simple, safe game that he can play. And he wasn't able to fully do that with Thomas Chabot. So that's where he ended spending most of his time with either Jakob Chychrun or on the bottom pair with Eric Brandstrom. But to give some positivity to Jacob Bernard Docker, one thing he deserves a lot of props for. This guy was blocking shots like his life depended on it. There was multiple games where he had 3, 4, 5 block shots. He led the Ottawa Senators with 156 block shots. So if you want to have any sort of critique of JBD, that's fine, but we need to put him on a platform here and really give him his flowers for really committing to getting in those lanes and blocking shots.
And if you even just look at it of guys who played at least 10 games this season, which is, taking out the one-off game performances, he had the 5th most blocks per 60 minutes of ice time in the entire National Hockey League.
Wow.
So that shouldn't go unnoticed for a guy who's making league minimum or near there of $805K. Next year is the final year of his contract. Then he's arbitration eligible RFA afterwards. You know who's one spot ahead of him, just barely blocking more shots? Chris Tanev, a guy who Sens fans are very excited about. Of course, the poise with the puck. I'm glad you said that right off the bat. That would be my one thing. Like, he has to work on that this summer. To me, JBD comes into camp next year as the 7th defenseman on the team. There's no point in trying to move on from it. He's got 1 year left at 805, and this is the type of defenseman that usually takes a little bit longer to develop, where they have some tools. Heck, he was on waivers at the start of this year when they sent him down. He did not provide in training camp what they thought that his development would. But at the same time, he went down, he worked, he's a pro, and you can just tell by talking with him. He's been on our show before, and just from people around the organization, a very likable guy. And not only that, a guy who, nutrition, dialed in, basically, is that he's a guy who's a leader in that sense. He's also jacked. They show some of the photos. Like, he's the kind of guy where if you give up on him, you could see him on his 2nd or 3rd team at 29, 30 years old. Now, I don't know if you can wait till 28, 29 right now for the Sens, but you're looking at a guy who I think will be an NHLer. Now, he's only 23 years old. He'll be 24 at the end of the month. So it's showtime. Like, you got to be 24 to 27 right now for a defenseman. You have to be able to be a contributing member more than just blocking shots.
Well, Ross, we talked to Pierre Dorion in the offseason, and he told us that 6th defenseman right-hand shot on the bottom pair was Jacob Bernard Docker's job to lose.
And he lost it to Travis Hamonic.
And that's the thing. He lost it right away, but then Hamonic's play started to fall off. There were some injuries in the blue line, and he got his chance. And I think he did a fine job with it. And I'm with you. Like, by no means should this team be giving up on Jacob Bernard Docker just yet. I think what he's going to provide to a team is going to be valuable in the future. It might not be there just yet, but really, you also got to give the kid a bit of credit. This is his first full season in the NHL, right? Like, he had a handful of games here and there, spending half the season in Belleville. So, like, kind of up, down, not really sure where.
It's more 3-2 because the first one I looked at, I forgot it was right after his college season. So he played the whole college season, then played 5 games. So it's really 3 years pro.
Exactly. That's the thing. I feel like Sens fans think JBD's been in the organization for a long time because he has.
He was drafted the same draft as Brady Tkachuk the same day.
Yeah, so he has been in the organization a long time, but I feel like that's unfair, especially for a young defenseman, to have all these expectations on him because really he's only played 1 full season in the NHL. So I'm intrigued to see what JBD's next season will be like. I'm intrigued to see where he's going to fit in once this regime makes their moves in the offseason. But I'm with you, Ross. I think if you can have Jakob Bernard Docker as your 6/7th defenseman, that's a good spot for him.
That's a great spot. Pillsy, look at this. This is how long they've been in the organization. That's from draft night.
Wow.
JBD and Brady Tkachuk. If you're watching on YouTube, that is a throwback. He's got to be like, those might be the only 2. I'm quickly running through the roster. I'm sure I'm missing a guy or 2 that's worn the 3D jersey that's on the Ottawa Senators.
Shabbat. That would be the only other.
Right. But otherwise, I mean, that is such a throwback. Anyways, JBD, don't give up on him. If you're Steve Staios, I mean, he's the cheapest asset you have on the blue line. They have like figuring out the next guy we're talking about, Travis Hamonic. It's more important one way or another than an $805,000 contract of a guy who's been in the organization. You've put in all the sweat equity and development equity to get him where he's at. And you hope that he can develop into a guy that is low maintenance, but a guy who can help out in their own zone, which is where they need the most help. So let us know in the comments. Pillsy, any final thoughts on JBD?
Nope, that's it.
I think we covered it pretty well.
Yeah.
Couple sifters from the point for JBD this year that found twine. He had more goals than Eric Brandstrom. I think that's a kind of a fun trivia question.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the thing. Like there is sparks of a really nice defenseman to be had, but JBD just needs a little more time.
Let us know in the comments your thoughts on Jakob Bernard Docker. Can the Sens afford to wait for JBD to reach his full potential? All right, our final exit interview among Senators defensemen. Travis Hamonic. He missed the last half of the season due to injury, and it was almost this mysterious, like he came back and started skating with the team, then he wasn't, then he was with a non-contact, then he wasn't. I don't think we ever see him play another game with the Ottawa Senators. I think for him, we were on the minority side of actually like appreciating what he brought when he was acquired. He actually, like, the first 6 months, like the end of that 2022 season and then the start of the next season, were like half decent. Even all of last season, him having 21 points and 6 goals was almost like, like he still has a bit of game left, still a bit of a mess in his own zone compared to what he was at his peak. But last year it really felt like, at 33 years old, a lot of NHL games, 841 now under his belt. It's starting to catch up with him, and it was pretty obvious by the end of it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I feel like, Ross, you and I, when he was given that extension, we looked at it and we're like, okay, there's not a lot of right shot defensemen on this team, first off. There's not a lot of veteran presence on this team, especially on the back end. And $1.1 million is not a lot of money. Sure, you don't love the full no move clause he's given, but that was kind of a nod to respecting him as a veteran. But we said, if this guy is your 7th defenseman, kind of your Nick Holden type guy, then it's okay. The issue is, sure, he only plays 48 games, but you look at it and almost all of those games were in one consistent stretch at the start of the season where we were kind of saying, okay, give him a spot start here and there type thing. Maybe he plays 15 to 25 games sprinkled out throughout the year, but that wasn't the case. He was overused. He was played in the top 4 too often, even this year. So I don't know what they're going to do with Travis Hamonic here, Ross, as he still has $1.1 million for next year, full no move clause. I hope they don't use a buyout on them. I kind of hope they're just able to quietly bury him and give him some sort of role with the team. But I'm sure Travis Hamonic doesn't want to hang him up just yet. So it's going to be interesting to see how this goes, the dynamic between the team and Hamonic, because Hamonic clearly was a Dorion guy. Like, that's someone that Dorion brought in. He paid more than he needed to acquire him, and he extended him and gave him the full no move. So I don't think this regime is going to feel like they owe Travis Hamonic anything.
Although Travis Hamonic was a teammate of Steve Staios, if you can believe that. That's how long Travis Hamonic has been in the league, that Steve Staios' last season he played when he got that one game over 1,000 was with the New York Islanders during Travis Hamonic's rookie or second season in the league. This year, Travis Hamonic played 48 games, 2 goals, 4 assists for 6 points, was -10, and had the worst 5-on-5 expected goals percentage among all Senators defensemen at 40.3%. And I think the biggest indictment, and certainly there's some circumstantial pressures on here, which is the parts of the season he played versus missed, but I also think there's some correlation. Without Travis Hamonic in the lineup, the Sens record was 18, 12, and 4. That would be a points percentage that probably sneaks you into the 8th spot in the playoffs. With Travis Hamonic, 19 wins in 48 games. 19 wins in 48 games. That's not good enough. And frankly, the team knew it. There were games where he was playing 5 or 6 minutes. Like,
yeah,
they know it. And I don't want to beat a dead horse because this is a very respected veteran. Over 800 games in the league. I just, every dog has its day. Is that kind of like the saying? It just feels like enough's enough.
Yeah. And it's tough because I think he's a guy that's well liked in the room. He seems like a hilarious guy that wears his heart on his sleeve.
He's one of the best interviews on the team. Whenever he would talk, like, he's very like thoughtful. He's very he has an ability to he should start a podcast.
Not a Sens podcast, though. Not a Sens.
Hammer down.
Yeah, there's a lot of good names to be had with Hammer there, but Ross, I'll definitely remember him as the Beaver Tapper. The Beaver tapping was hilarious, especially when he played with Jake Sanderson in Sanderson's rookie year. And Sandy's obviously like, I know I'm at a better spot than you in my career right now. I'm the better player on this pair, but you're a veteran, so if you're Beaver tapping, I'm gonna pass it to you.
Yep. This is what I'll always remember Travis Hamonic for. His first game with the Ottawa Senators in Winnipeg, his hometown.
Yep.
He gets the player of the game after a big win, and the boys, you can see Branny in the background just loving it. So, I mean, that to me also just kind of exemplifies that, look, this guy's well liked. He's a great veteran. I hope, like, a perfect role to me would be a skills coach and have him be like, teach these boys how to block shots and hits. But we've seen enough on the ice that I think it's time. And it's not like, if he was at 975 games, I'd be like, could we milk 25 more, get him to 1,000? But he hit that 800 games played milestone. I don't know if he's getting to another milestone in his career. I think that, look, when you look back, when we sit back 10 years from now as an NHL player, we're going to be like, good career for Travis Hamonic.
Definitely.
And I think that we could probably leave it at that, unless you have any final thoughts on Travis Hamonic.
The other thought that I'll think about him from this season is he had such a classic beer league moment. He's behind the net with the puck, huffing and puffing, and the board bike catches him going, I'm effing gassed. Like he's waiting, he's waiting for players to come on the change, and the forward loops around, and then they decide, does the defenseman take it? Does he drop for the forward? And he sees the forward coming in, and he lets him know, I'm effing gassed. You take this. I'm going to the net. And the mic picked it up perfectly. It was an all-time moment, just so relatable. If you've played beer league and you're on like a 3-minute shift and you're like, I'm dead.
Well said. Great way to finish up our exit interviews among Senators defensemen. That is how we felt about the season of Travis Hamonic. Let us know for more let us know how you feel about it in the comments. Pilsy, I didn't forget today. Credit to me. But before we get to our Tankathon spin, do you have any final thoughts for us?
Okay. My final thought was going to be to remind you. So retract that final thought, and I will.
We're only 2 shows away from the NHL draft lottery. Like it's coming quick.
these spins matter. We're in meaningful spins territory right now.
We do need to actually get first overall at least once before
let's
draft
get a
lottery.
couple more second overalls to really spice things up here. But final thought for me before we do the spins, Belleville is the place to be tonight, guys. Come say what up to me, section 105. I'm fired up.
Oh, so fired up. And here, just so people can see beforehand, this is where we're at spin-wise since we started doing it. We're still 0 first overall picks. All right, 1 spin for Pilsy, 1 spin for me, 1 spin for the Citizens. You get how we do this already. First spin for Pilsy, first overall. Let's go.
Love it. Love it. And
Pilsy.
this is nice, Ross, because the Sens can make sure they get Lev Shunov, and then San Jose can have Celebrini.
So, hey, would you trade down?
Yeah, honestly,
you're nuts.
No.
I would only do it. Call me crazy. I would trade in this circumstance. I would trade 1 for 2 and 14.
Ooh.
But I don't know if San Jose does that to move up 1 spot. Maybe they do.
Yeah, that's interesting.
A little.
No,
that's a little brain teaser for you. Think about that one a little bit.
Okay.
All right, my spin. Oh gosh, this is awful. Montreal wins the lottery. New Jersey moves up 8 spots, which means Ottawa moves down 1 spot. Ottawa down 1 spot. I've gotten 8-6 out of my 10 spins.
Big 8 guy.
That's so bad. All right, Citizens, take us home with a 2. No, Minnesota moves up 10 spots to number 3. Ottawa down at number 8. So the Citizens have now gotten 8. Oh, I stopped sharing. Very, very good by me. Okay. But hey, look at this. We've got 2 more days of this. Pilsy, do you think we can get a first overall under our belt? Just 1. Or no, sorry. I need to get first overall.
I was going to say, I just got 1.
I know. I've got a big blank in that category, and so do the Citizens. So we'll work on that going forward here on Locked On Senators. Appreciate everybody for watching, listening, engaging with the show. It really does mean a lot to us as we are carrying through here during the slower part of the season. But man, draft lottery, mock draft season, and then our draft profile start in 10 days. 10 days. This weekend, the U18s finish up, and then everyone kind of thinks about who stocks rising, stocks falling, and we'll have you every step of the way. For today, we say goodbye. Thanks so much for listening, watching. That's Brandon Piller. I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. Your team every day.